part of the world that has the capacity to generate, because that's where the resources are, and it is that part of the world above, US, Europe, Asia, parts of Asia, China, that desperately needs enormous amount of capacity, and that demand is there. The company that I've been privileged to lead for the last 17 years, we have very much focused at not market pricing what we produce, power and desalinated water, and now in hydrogen, but at trying to focus in on cost, risk-reflective investment returns, and keep the cost down as low as possible, and keep driving the cost of whatever those things are, electricity, water, drive those costs down as fast as possible. And as we step into hydrogen, this is exactly what we are doing. And the next slide is a very busy slide, but what I wanted to show you there is merely the fact that, if I can get there, merely the fact that over the last decade, we have led the reduction of concentrated solar power tariffs by 80%, photovoltaic tariffs by 85%, wind energy by 75%, and we are very convinced just within the next 5 years, hydrogen will come down at those sort of rates. With that conviction, and while everybody was waiting for a market to be developed, we decided that we can go forward and get on with one project that will produce significant amount of green hydrogen, so at scale, and the market will come. Utterly convinced. So we have decided to go forward, and we have now gone forward with what is, I think many people know, as the NEOM project. Well, let's not get confused. NEOM is a region. They're developing a 500 billion investment, massive future way of life, clean mobility, everything else packaged into one. But at that site, we are developing a very large green hydrogen project using solar power to be generated at a site nearby, 200 kilometers away, wind power to be generated on the coast at NEOM, and moving those through power lines to an industrial site where we're putting a fairly large plant to produce green hydrogen. We'll be producing green hydrogen, we'll be converting that to liquid ammonia, so it'll be green liquid ammonia, which then in turn will be shipped out from the port of NEOM to the world markets. So at a very high level, the quick sort of numbers, we're going to be using 2.5 gigawatts of solar capacity, generating capacity, 1.5 gigawatts of wind generating capacity to feed 2 gigawatts of electrolyzers. Those 2 gigawatts of electrolyzers will produce 600 tons of hydrogen per day, or 240,000 tons per annum. We'll be converting that 240,000 tons to liquid ammonia to produce 1.15 million tons of liquid ammonia. The project has already gone into construction. Electrolyzer contracts have been awarded to ThyssenKrupp, so we're using alkaline electrolyzers from ThyssenKrupp. We are using the well-known Haber-Bosch process to convert the hydrogen to liquid ammonia. At the core of it, it's very large, but at the core of it, a very straightforward project, but it is the first of that scale. And just to give you an idea, 240,000 tons of green hydrogen per annum is more than all the green hydrogen produced today by whatever the number of plants, because they're all very small plants scattered around the world. So this is the first of a kind that is going to become replicated. And we have already stepped into Oman to repeat that project at another site. And we are looking at exactly the same sort of structure in partnership with Air Products. In the case of Saudi Arabia, in one-third partnership with Air Products and NEOM. In the case of Oman, with OQ, which is the Oman investment company, doing exactly the same output. Namibia's value proposition, you know it. You've got fantastic solar and wind resources. You've got the Atlantic Ocean, easy access to markets, deep sea ports. You've got a very stable government, excellent track record of behavior on contracts, you should be able to attract very large, significant investments, which is what this will need. So the platform is really ready to take advantage of and you're sitting also with a market that is to the south, the industrial clusters of South Africa. Namibia itself should be able to industrialize on the back of the amount of hydrogen it can produce for itself. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Pat Manathan deserves another round of applause. Green hydrogen is absolutely fascinating, especially for the layperson. Read Denver Kisting. So the one moment you have the sense that I could even qualify as an expert, I totally understand it. And the very next moment you're like, whoo, this is hectic, but we are moving and we're getting there. Am I making any form of sense? Is it something that we can relate to? But what I love, Madam Wanja, did you say yes as well? I love it. I love it. But what I love more is that there's movement. There are shifts. And we're able to transparently, with awareness, take stock of every single incremental step. What a time to be alive, right? In any case, I'm paraphrasing number one, but certainly taking out of context the words used earlier by the good Professor Anisha Peters. And I see she is indeed paying attention at the moment. Prof, so I'm paraphrasing number one, and number two, I'm taking out of context, but I'm okay with that completely. You said earlier what you are witnessing is an evolution, but we need to get to a revolution. So that's exactly what we are heading towards in terms of the hydrogen revolution. For that purpose, we'll be addressed by Mr. Marco Alvera, Chief Executive Officer of TES Hydrogen, TES H2. As soon as Mr. Alvera is done, right, I would like to call upon Mr. Francisco Neshila from the Namibia Institute of Town and Regional Planning, now already, to speak to us about infrastructure requirements to meet the housing as well as other practical needs of Namibia in terms of the first large-scale green hydrogen production project. So gentlemen, I'd like you to both be ready. Mr. Neshila, you'll be on stage just after Mr. Alvera. You both each have 5 minutes. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Alvera. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and what a great conference. The good news is I can stick to 5 minutes because everything that Paddy just said, I completely endorse. And I met Paddy 5 years ago at a Financial Times conference where I was working in SNAM as a CEO, worrying about the storage and the molecules, and he was advocating for an electrification of a lot of consumption, and we were thoroughly disagreeing. And the great news is that hydrogen really brought us together as friends and now also soon as colleagues. So let me explain a little more what I just said. I started my energy career in Enel. For those who don't know, Enel is one of the world's largest developers of renewable energy and a big utility in Italy. And when I was in Enel in 2014, I was sent to the Global Hydrogen Conference in Kyoto. I came back fully in love with hydrogen, but there is a slight problem, as Paddy just showed us. The cost was $1,000 per megawatt hour, and the value of oil at the time was around $10 a megawatt hour. So it was costing 100 times more than oil. I then, from Enel, moved to Eni. Eni is the biggest oil and gas company in Africa. I worked in Libya, in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Congo, in Angola, in Nigeria. And Eni is one of the world's biggest natural gas companies doing LNG exploration and all that work. And I was just stuck with this idea that you can't electrify everything, that you need storage, that you need molecules, that you need to worry about the heavy industries that cannot be run on batteries and cables. And I was really frustrated about the fact that hydrogen was a perfect solution. It was just too expensive. And I didn't do my homework. I was stuck with this idea of just super expensive. Then in 2016, I moved to Snam. Snam is Europe's largest gas company. We have pipelines, we have regasification, gas storage, and we completed last year a pipeline to bring natural gas from Azerbaijan across the Caspian Sea, across Azerbaijan, across Georgia, across all of Turkey, across Albania, across Greece, Italy. $50 billion project with BP. So you have to go and get gas from really, really far and pipe it. And as we were worrying about how to decarbonize our entire system, on the one hand, building these massive projects, on the other hand, really working to decarbonize fast, my strategy team came into the office saying, we see a path to make hydrogen at $1 a kilo or $25 a megawatt hour. And these are exactly the numbers that Paddy was showing. And we see a path that if we scale up enough electrolyzer capacity while the cost of solar and wind continues to fall, we can get to a system where from the historical 1,000, we bring it all the way down to 25. That was an eureka moment. I knew in that meeting that lasted for a couple of hours that my life was going to be dedicated to pursuing this, to accelerating this, and to delivering this $1 a kilo, $25 a megawatt hour number. Why is that number so special? Because at that number, it becomes the cheapest form of energy, full stop. Cheaper than coal, cheaper than oil, cheaper than gas. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so if we extrapolate and look forward, the market is huge. People didn't believe in this. I wrote 2 books, by the way. One is actually called The Hydrogen Revolution, which is for adults. And I also wrote with my 2 daughters a kids' book on hydrogen called Zero, Z-H-E-R-O, which, by the way, is also... This is also the name of the company I have started with Paddy and with Alessandra, who is here. And the reason I wrote a book for children is that this message, we have to bring it to the generation of the people who are really scared about the climate for the right reasons. Europe is on fire. We had fires in Portugal, in Spain, in France, in Italy, and in Greece. Real fires destroying forests that haven't been touched for hundreds of years. So the race is on. We need solutions. We have the solutions. And what we will do with Zero and with Paddy and with Alessandra, who was working with me in SNAM, is work on world-scale iconic projects. So the first project we're doing that I want to use the remaining 3 minutes on is to talk about TESS. TESS is a company I'm now the CEO of. This is my job. We're building a big hydrogen receiving terminal in Germany. This terminal alone will require 7 million tons of green hydrogen. This will require 280 gigawatts of renewable energy. This will require 120 gigawatts of electrolyzers. The bottleneck is not the lack of demand. We already have some of the European largest companies that are asking for the green molecules as quickly as possible. And what happened, whilst hydrogen is on this journey from 1,000 all the way down to 25, and hopefully we'll get to 25 by 2035, kind of in the next 10, 15 years, gas has gone up and oil has gone up from the 10, 7, now to 200. Actually 250 today. So that's the opportunity, and that's why the companies are racing to buy our solution. Our solution is to deliver synthetic methane. So we will use CO2 as a very neat way of delivering hydrogen from Namibia and other places to Germany. So we have the market. The fact that we have the companies that have already signed up means the projects that we look at from an upstream perspective become immediately bankable because we have the offtakes already in place. We have the receiving infrastructure that's being permitted and fast-tracked. So all we need to do is to find the land, put the panels, put the electrolyzers, convert that from hydrogen to CH4, and then we're off to the races. And as we look at the map of the world of where the most attractive solar and wind resources are, Namibia is very high up. I don't want to repeat what Paddy said, but the availability of land, the predictable and political stability, the ambition that we're experiencing in these 2 days of really a lot of entrepreneurial drive and government ambition to make this happen, it just couldn't be better. And the access to the land and the access to the sea, the deep sea ports. So really, Namibia can be a hub, a regional hub for Africa for this hydrogen revolution. And when you become a hub, magical things happen. It's not just about exporting the sun, and it's not about exporting Namibian wind to Germany. It's about creating jobs and an ecosystem where, as you scale up the renewables, you become the place with the cheapest energy. And as you become a place with cheap energy, with availability of land, with availability of natural resources, with availability of lithium and silicium and other rare earth in or around Namibia, then you really attract the next industrial revolution. And if I'm Amazon and I require huge amounts of green energy for my data centers, because people now, when they watch Netflix, they want it run off a data center that's green. And which better place in Namibia were to build regional data centers? Which better place than Namibia to make green steel? The iron ore is here, the ports are here, and the cheap energy is going to be here. So we called it the hydrogen revolution, but this is really an industrial and a social revolution, because we need to start from the schools. We need to start with a positive message that kids can understand there is a chance to save the planet from global warming, and there is a chance to combine economic and social prosperity at the same time. And we start from the schools, we bring it to the universities, we attract global technology into Namibia, and we can get the manufacturing, we can get the exports, and we can also attract other companies that are looking for cheap energy where to base their operations. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 5 minutes that I have, all protocols observed. I just want to quickly, I don't know if Bruce here from Fortescue Industries, if he's available, perhaps he could stand. If not, we will move forward. The idea is that he's probably the youngest sponsor that we have in the room, and he's from Namibia. And I think he just brought some great delegations with to Namibia, and it's really worth to give him the mention. The second one will go to Cons Karamata. Thank you very much for the past 6-7 years for setting up such high quality conferences. We really appreciate. My issue today is that I hear the issue of land is really coming through strong, and I just want to ensure that investor Namibia, we are ready and we are able to respond to all the needs of the land requirement. On the presentation, the spatial analysis that is there is basically Reabot. And the reason why it's Reabot is that Reabot got a special operation. They got their own deeds office. Basically, within 24 hours, we're able to give you a title deed. So if you need land and you have the money, you can just wire now, and we'll make sure that you have the land. So that is how good we are. I know there's a lot of comparison regarding Rwanda, that Rwanda is very competitive. But all I wanted to say is that what Rwanda did, they just copied all our land policies and they just perfection it. But we are moving in the right direction. So, and I'll prove to you basically why. The reason for Reabot is that for the past 18 years, Reabot was not growing. And that's why you see the brown area. That was 2000 and 2006. Then you have the yellow area, 2012, and the rest is 2021. That clearly shows you that there hasn't been a lot of growth in Reabot. But the good thing is, and what I wanted to assure, and the reason why Reabot is that there is also the aspect, people were accommodated in those spaces, and the issues of the ancestral land in Reabot, they've been dealt with, which is the Rukoro report. So the conflicts of land issues has been addressed. We are working very, very hard on it. So do bear with us, and we are able to give you the land that you require. What you're seeing there in your picture, that is Rundu. Rundu is one of the aspects that we're having some serious problem in terms of infrastructure. The thing is, when it comes to land and infrastructure, it's a space that you cannot lie and you need to tell the truth. And sometimes as a country, we are always misunderstood. And that's why I'm trying to make a reference from David Chappelle that he's always misunderstood. And the Namibian context, when it comes to land, that is one of the aspects. Rundu is having some serious crisis, but we've been working on it. Even as we speak now, there are stakeholders having some meetings to address the infrastructure. And I think Lithon Consulting Engineers, they are also part here, and they are part of the strategic master plan for Rundu. And in short, Rundu has run about only 30% of the residents of Rundu have full services. And the rest of the 70, they don't have any services, but it's the second most populated urban area in Namibia. The idea is just to give you context that we do have problems and we are not hiding them, but we are addressing them. It's just to give you that context perspective. So what we're trying to indicate as well, there was a lot mentioned about data. We are working extremely hard to address our data issues so that we can give you the correct information. But what we are presenting there is basically a short perspective of what are the different data that are available in the private sector, which we gave you a town of Grootfontein, Marienthal, Wolfish Bay, and I think it's Thea. So basically, looking at those graphs, it's a clear indication our average house sales per year, it's around about 300 per year. So in the past 5 years, you're looking at an average of around about 1,500. When you look at Grootfontein, over a period of close to 20 years, they are producing 1,500 land portions. This is purely just a reality. We are struggling in this aspect, but we are working on it. The idea and the concept is about truth, and we want to be clear on what we are telling you. But there is a solution for it in terms of going forward. When you look at Wolfish Bay is probably one of the towns that is selling above 800, but in the past 2 to 3 years, they've declined extremely. But they are working hard, Mr. Mayor, but that's just the reality. But there's a condition of gratitude of the market and all other aspects. The same apply to Omphia. Omphia, it's also another struggle there. But our numbers are getting better. We now have an urban and regional structure plan that we are able to deliver more units. So we haven't really assessed what is the impact of delivery of the new urban structure plan. But very soon we will be able to do that. So just to give you a better, because my idea is to sell about is to talk about Ludgerus and to sell it, because the Hyphen, they are planning to build their project in close proximity. And what we have then realized is that there's going to be around about, say, 3,000 permanent jobs, and these people will need housing and they will need infrastructure. But in the past 4 months, we've been doing a flexible land tenure and Ludgerus, and we just realized that they're on the waiting list. There's around about 6,000 people on the waiting list. And that means basically when you add on the green hydrogen project, we are looking at 10,000 land portions. Now, for the past 30 years, we've been producing, for every 10 years, we are producing 10,000 land portions. So which means over a period of 30 years, we are sitting at around about 46,000 land portions. So if you're looking at the data, it might not seem possible that Ludgerus won't be able to deliver these land portions, but we are in the process of improving it, and this is basically the reason why. Now, for the past 2 months, we were very fortunate as a company and the Kamau Town Planning and Development Specialist to be appointed as to be the lead consultant on the urban land policy. And under the urban land policy is that's where we're going to generate and all the needed aspects in terms of land delivery and infrastructure. We've been struggling with our financial sector to be able to understand how do they need to finance infrastructure. Now, under the integrated land policy, all these factors are going to be addressed, and we got experts on the team as well, of which Manasseh is going to give us the input on the financial aspect and how to structure those elements in financing infrastructure and housing. We are seriously working on it. And I know this morning when I woke up, the first thing I look at the newspaper, I realize that there's an issue of affordability, and this is something that we've picked up in the newspaper. So hence the concept, it's all about the truth. And however, as I said, Namibia is always misunderstood. So we are working hard. We are establishing some policy pillars, of which also this pillars is also an extraction from the Harambee Prosperity Plan. And thus far, we've already been given some 2 reports that has been sent to the State House because they wanted to know how far are we with the process of the urban land policy. We're extremely communicating with the ministry in terms to be able to address this housing shortage and solution. Perhaps I would then want to touch further on perhaps what I've missed on yesterday's discussion. It's the marine spatial plan that we're also having in Namibia. There have been some court cases in the past due to some development in the high water mark, but the marine spatial plan is there. I do not know if Hyphen or the environmentalists are aware of such a policy, but we do have it in place now. I think it's probably 2 to 3 months. It will be then formalized. So we are working extremely hard to address the housing shortages. The plans are in place, and the government is really investing a lot of money into it. Now, basically on the continent, we are the second country to be able to do the urban land policy, and the first country is Ghana. However, we are celebrating Rwanda, but in the next 3 years, we will be able to catch up with South Africa because we are implementing the SPLUMA, the National Special Development Framework, and 2 years thereafter, we'll then implement the Regional Structure Plan, which I'm looking forward that in the next 3 years, Namibia will probably be number 1 in terms of land delivery. We are moving at a very fast pace. It's just that a lot of people are not aware of this thing, but some of us who are operating in the land space and development, we are taking track and we are on the right track. Thank you very much.
Was that all you could come up with in terms of a round of applause for Mr. Nishila? Mr. Nishila, there are about 5 human beings, maybe 6 in the room, and I witnessed that both their pupils dilated significantly when you mentioned Rehoboth. I don't know what the motivation was behind that specific physiological manifestation. Let me only speak for myself. What I did hear, and I'm trusting that I heard correctly, is that the land is available. So could you kindly see to it that my name lands on that list? Thank you very much. I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that we can't have a conversation about the components in isolation. Everything overlaps. Everything is interrelated. Everything is interconnected. And land delivery, the availability of land, and now Madam Wanja also explains it so well. An investor wants to know, by the time they bring their know-how and the capital, they must have a place where they can set up the factory, where they can employ the Namibians. But if it is going to be a long and cumbersome process, we lose out on the investment. We thus lose out on the employment opportunities. So we need to take good care of those components. What stood out from the presentation by Mr. Marco Alvera, which I love, and I'll keep it this brief. When we become a green hydrogen hub, he says, magical things will happen. In any event, before we break for lunch, I feel a bit sorry for Madam Ileka and her panel, but I'll try my utmost to be kind, with your assistance, of course. So she'll be focusing specifically on renewable energy and energy efficiency from the perspective of the Namibia Energy Institute with the collaboration of the panel. Before I share her bio with you, I'd like to appeal to her and her panel. You have a big panel, ma'am, and they're very knowledgeable. But what it does mean is you have one powerful question per panelist. One powerful question per panelist. And it must include the introductory overview. It certainly must also include their concluding remarks as that one response. Unified, integrated, synergized. Is that okay? And also, as the director of the proceedings at the Namibia Green Hydrogen National Conference 2022, I also give you the mandate. If a panelist, let's say her name is Jemima Beekes, speaks for 5 minutes for that one powerful question, please kindly say to her, Mrs. Beekers, thank you very, very much, and then you proceed. Let's get to the business. Madam Ileka is the acting director at the Namibia Energy Institute, hosted at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. She advocates to contribute to Namibia's industrialization by linking energy research, technology, policy, and education to the needs of industry, as well as to national socio-economic development imperatives, initiatives, and programs. She also initiates and conducts research in renewable energy, as well as energy efficiency. She develops fundraising strategies and advises government on clean energy policy, generates income from other sources than government, creates local and international research networks and partnerships. She holds a Master's of Energy and Environmental Management degree from the University of Twente in the Netherlands. One thing that I know, despite some of us at this stage only knowing enough to be dangerous, Madam Nangula Wanja, is that so many countries in the SADC region, so many countries on the African continent, so many countries across the globe will soon be green with envy. Let's put our hands together for Madam Halvi and her panel.
Thank you very much, Demva, Director of Proceedings. With that limited time, I would like to observe the protocol as it was established already. First, I would like to say that I'm honored to be here today. But I would like to say, for example, when people were talking of green hydrogen, I thought, no, let me focus, because I know the solar industry and the renewable energy industry is also not ready yet, and it's supposed to give power to the electrolyzers. But here I am today. I see I cannot run away from green hydrogen. It is here to stay. First, Demfa, you already took out from my time, but I will rush into it. I would like to call my panelists to come already because it's a little bit hectic. Yes, it's a little bit hectic. So yes, we have Mr. Pedi, we have Mr. Alvera, and Mr. Philip. Can we have Mr. Nishila as well? Thank you. I would like not to waste time. I've already indicated that I was introduced that I'm from the Namibia Energy Institute. The institute is established by the Minister of Mines and Energy with all the funding, and we are hosted at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. Mr. Pedi, yes?
Yes.
Say, this morning, the Prime Minister have indicated that Namibia would like to basically come up with a 300,000 tons annually of the green hydrogen. In terms of infrastructure, what are we talking about? Can you please break down of the infrastructure requirements and where we are now with the meeting those requirements? From the renewable energy source, also I understand that, for example, from Europe, the whole objective is they know that it's very expensive to transport green hydrogen, and they were thinking of pipelines which can become cheaper, for example. Can you please break it down for us? What does it mean for us to deliver these 300 tons in terms of infrastructure?
Thank you very much. So, limited time, I'll jump straight into it. So 300,000 tons, just to give you an idea, we're talking about 6 gigawatts, 6,000 megawatts of renewable energy that's going to be needed between solar and wind. So we're going to need something in the order of about, at best, nothing more than 10 square kilometers of land. Not really, between the energy as well as the complex for the electrolyzers and everything else. Now this, okay, so that's, and then that endeavor of getting that built over a period of, it's not going to happen tomorrow, to build that capacity and that amount of renewable energy. If you really focus at it, you can get it done from start of construction to be dispatching within 4.5 years. But you really need to be focused at it. The entire endeavor will probably take many more than that because you've got to plan, you've got to design. During the construction period, plus or minus, you will be creating jobs of something in the order of about 7,000 to 8,000 people during the construction of that activity. Thereafter, operation and maintenance for that scale of a plant, you will probably have sustainable jobs of something in the order of about 900 to 1,000 for all related activity around it. Now, that number of people that I said to you is directly involved in the construction. Then there's obviously allied support structure that will easily double that number. So it is employment creation. It is, and you can, on the back of it, you should, on the back of it, bring technology and do other industrial activities. If you can have as Namibia is producing a long-term vision, you can bring industry, you can bring solar manufacturing capacity, wind turbine, electrolyzers, all of that will create spin-off. So it is quite significant. Now then the issue comes, what do we do with that hydrogen? Enormous demand. So do we take it out of the country? Do we convert it to, today, if you want to take it to Europe, you either bring carbon dioxide and convert it to methanol and take it, or you produce ammonia and ship it out, or you have got also in Namibia potentially some use, and neighboring South Africa needs a lot of industrial demand is there. You can run a pipeline. So you can, my view, if you're going to focus at 300,000 tons, you should be using part of that, at least 100,000 or more, in order to be using it internally for industrial capacity expansion. You have got lots of real industrial opportunities, whether it is iron, whether it is lithium, whether it is other industrial activity of Namibia. The rest you can start thinking about then, part of it potentially through pipeline. So I'll leave it at that. There are others who can add a lot more color to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Say. Mr. Alvera.
Hi.
Sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing your name good.
Yep.
I was listening to Mr. Onjode from NTA today. He said he's ready, but later he was also saying that somehow he's ready. I know, like from NTA, for example, perspective, we have from the COSTEC, and all the infrastructures are there. We have the vocational training centers. and all the infrastructures are there. But maybe in terms of training programs, and I was also listening to the chairperson of the economic who said what we need to address is poverty and inequality. Say, with your experience from the evolution, revolution implies fast drastic changes. What do you think should be our change management strategy as a country to mitigate the coming up so that we can face those uphill for revolution? So what do you think we need to do? I did not read your books yet, hopefully to read them. But what do you think Namibia now needs to do? We are still talking of the 300 tons of, 300,000 tons annually. What do you think Namibia now need to do in terms of this?
This will be a short answer because I met some government officials in these days, and I think the country is doing exactly what it should be doing, which is organizing events like this, spreading the word, getting local entrepreneurs and international investors and established companies involved. What is really important, and between Paddy and I think we've built more than $100 billion worth of projects in energy. And a lot of those have been built in Africa. And it's not something that you can do overnight, as it requires a lot of preparation. There is a lot of learning by doing, so to use and involve people that have that experience, you avoid a lot of mistakes because a lot of the learnings that we have from projects that were done 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago can be readily transferred. I think the model for the hydrogen, and therefore also a model that Namibia should follow, is a model of promoting the partnerships. I talked earlier about this pipeline, $40 billion or $50 billion, thousands of kilometers. You have 5 global companies collaborating on the same project. If you look at the upstream industry, Shell, Total, BP, they collaborate all the time. And I would rather have, if I were worrying about a country, I would rather have 4 projects with 3 or 4 or 5 companies collaborating than a multitude of projects that are each totally independent. And if you look at NEOM that was talked about, it's a collaboration between different companies. And so I think the key message is collaboration. Collaboration across the value chain, collaboration in developing infrastructure which will then be used for multiple projects. But I think everything I've heard is going in that direction, and I think the steps that are being taken are good. The bottleneck will be on the manufacturing and the availability of panels and electrolyzers, and the bottleneck will be on people. And we saw in LNG when countries required local content and investors wanted local content, but there wasn't local talent, then you have a bottleneck. That is why we need to start really investing not only in the universities, but as I said, also on the schools to open and widen that base to really create that generation of hydrogen people that we need to get it going. And it's not all about PhDs. We need manufacturing capability. We need the arms, the minds, and we need those to be trained and grow together.
I have a follow-up question, sir. Prof. Anisha already indicated that our engineers' trainings are theoretical based. And she highlighted that she wished to transform those existing engineers that are in the market who are not currently working, for example. I'm actually glad that Germany is in partnership with this, because I know the vocational training in Germany, you register from the company, and then there is a trainer at the company, and there is a trainer at the vocational institute. How do you think we can, for example, because I was listening also from NTA, they are basically indicating that maybe the best option is when it's more practical oriented, but our industry is also very small. And what we learn is that we need now to train engineers who are able to open up their own companies, for example. Say, with your experience again, how should we go about this green hydrogen to ensure that whatever we are producing create really permanent jobs?
So I think the steps that are being taken are the right steps, and I think once you become that regional hub, it will be self-fulfilling, and there will be probably in a short period of time more jobs than people available. So I expect you'll be surprised, as it's happened with LNG in Australia and many other countries that I've seen. You will have a shortage of skills. The best thing to do is to do exactly what you said, is to partner up countries like Germany. Tess is building this project in Germany. We are open for business. Zero is open for business. The best investment is to get some of the local engineers to come spend time with us, see the projects we're working on, see the projects that have been built. And that's really the best way of learning from what has already been done. And that's just the history of humanity. That's the way we grew up, is by learning the stories of who came before us. And so I think the best investment is to get these exchange programs working, get some of the students to visit the sites of existing facilities to understand what's needed. That's really a key thing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Say. Mr. Nishila, Say, I saw you were very excited, and you even have land available. I read that even in the EU, for example, there's no credible financing strategy for hydrogen use in the households. In your view, what will be hydrogen consumption in a normal household, for example? Can you list a number of consumption in a number of households, for example?
Right. Well, to be honest, I'm not so much well vested in terms of on the hydrogen perspective and on a household level. But perhaps if you allow me to just divert a little bit from your question, and perhaps to address a very critical aspect on the land issue, I would probably want to comment on the export aspect of how you utilize land and use it as a medium to export. That I didn't mention in my presentation, as that previously Namibia have been operating in the free trade zone areas that were created around Wolfish Bay, and the same aspect, and I know the government made some corrections to EU standards, to international standards for that, and I think if we apply the same principle to where the green hydrogen is going to be built, even though it's a conservation area, that there are extreme benefits towards that. In terms of perhaps the impact it will have on the household, it's probably going to be in future the transportation, because the car also kind of form parts of a household per se. That is probably the only thing I could comment. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Honorable Philip, thank you very much. Again, your question is talking of these 300 tons or whatever thousand Namibia is supposed to achieve. I also heard this morning that Honorable Shifeta is saying that while we are advocating for our green hydrogen, we need to consider the ecosystem. From the 300,000 tons we need to deliver, for example, annually, for Rooderitz specifically, how much are you planning to contribute to this target? And how ready are we in terms of the infrastructure and land availability while considering the ecosystem in the Speergebied?
Thank you for the opportunity, and it's a massive privilege to be here with this esteemed panel. You know, when it comes to producing the hydrogen, I think us as Lüderitz Town Council, we won't really play a massive role. You know, we'd like to create a conducive environment where businesses can thrive and grow. So that's where we will basically do our very best to ensure that everything is there, you know, to ensure the success of this project. And then when it comes to the readiness of Lüderitz Town Council, you know, it's a really powerful and a heavy question, because, you know, emotionally and mentally we are all very ready, very excited. But then I have to play the devil's advocate as well. You know, it's a very, very old town with a very, very old infrastructure. So you name it, sort of needs attention, from roads all the way through water, sewer, electricity. Everything has to receive the attention it desperately needs. So I think to ensure the success of a project of this magnitude, we have to ensure that the foundation is you know, of best quality. So let's invest in our infrastructure in the town. That's why I want to implore the central government to support us more. We've been blessed with the amount of support we've been receiving. But what I'd like to implore them to start, you know, implementing a lot more of the great ideas and concepts that we've now brainstormed. Because the interest is one thing, but we really want people now to commit and to get our town ready. Because, you know, our town is definitely going to change. It's hopefully going to maintain its charm, but we won't recognize the town in 10 years. So, yeah, we're elated by the opportunities this brings. But there's also a lot of, you know, possible challenges, and I'd like to call them opportunities rather. You know, a lot of opportunities for us to empower, you know, our vocational training centers. We have to, you know, invest in them as well. There's a lot of opportunities now for them to get practical experience while we fix all of our infrastructural, you know, projects that we have to work on now. So there's a lot of opportunities for them to already get the training that they will need by the time the hydrogen project kicks off. We will have experienced laborers who can at least, you know, not on the higher education or engineering levels, but, you know, on the implementation and construction levels, we will have people who can weld, and we'll have plumbers, and we'll have electricians. And so, again, it's investing in the foundation at the right time, and I think the right time is now. So, yeah, again, employ the central government, help support us, take Lüderitz to the next level, and to be ready for this massive, massive project that will hopefully and most definitely change the whole world.
Yes, Mr. Petty, just one last question from your experience. Yes, sorry, there's just one last question. I think we need to benefit from his experience. Mr. Petty, yesterday from the pilot project, there was a project for Trans-Namibia, for example. In terms of now, also this morning I heard in Tanzania they are already transforming and moving from old cars to green hydrogen, for example, just trying to create our local demand here. Are there standards for hydrogen cars, or what does it take for Namibia, for example? What should Namibia consider, especially when they are building this project in terms of standards?
Yeah, so good question, actually, and a quick answer. There are standards. They have already been established. There are hydrogen buses, hydrogen cars that are operating, hydrogen trucks in some parts of the world. The only point I would like to make, though, a country that is embarking on a hydrogen strategy and a huge amount of opportunity, and you've got a very large country with long distances, and an established infrastructure. I think there much more serious attention should be paid to the opportunity of CH4, methanol, green, taking carbon dioxide, putting it together with hydrogen to produce that. Then you don't have to change any of your current infrastructure. You don't have to change any of your vehicles, and rather convert them to become green using that process. So that's one point. The other point I would like to make is that if you're going to start making significant amounts of green hydrogen, really, you should be creating the multiplier effect with that green hydrogen by industrializing your economy. You are then in the best place to utilize that hydrogen to create the multiplier effect in order to grow faster as an economic powerhouse. Because all of that will spur on more industries around you. So, yes, think about the cars, but the opportunity space is much more broader, and the value additional proposition that that broader perspective gives you is much more valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Madam Ileka and her panel, Tapandula Unene, let's give them another round of applause. Councillor Balao, we love Ludwitz. We really enjoy it. It's beautiful, and now it has this immense potential. My only concern is, why does it have to be so far? Ludwitz is beautiful, but too far, right? Fellow progressive and forward thinkers, fellow practitioners of excellence, ladies and gentlemen, the moment of truth has arrived. We want to see to it that we take care of your physical and physiological needs in as far as it relates to nutrition. That's a very important qualifier, right? So, yesterday, in the spirit of green hydrogen, your meal vouchers were green, of course. We also heard about gray hydrogen, that's the bad one, right? Yesterday. And we also saw pink hydrogen. So today's meal vouchers are pink. Please make sure that you collect your own meal voucher at the door, not on behalf of your neighbor, not on behalf of your fellow progressive thinker. And we will be back in this room at 2 o'clock. We will be back in this room at 2 o'clock. Dr. von Dordere has made available to me at my disposal a weapon of mass destruction in as far as it relates to your continued ability to hear. We do not want to infringe on that very important right. Bon appétit. Merci beaucoup.